Uh,
Hi
okay.
guys. So we are live at .NET X webinar with Mr. Swami. So today we are just going to discuss about how to build gRpc services using ASP.NET Core. Please do confirm through the chat window if you can hear us. And the people who are joining us first time, please let us know like we are joining first time. Yes, Swami sir, now can you start like what is the agenda you are having?
Yep, sure. Hey guys, good morning. My name is Vishwanath Swami. So today we are going to discuss about gRpc, and what we are going to do is we are going to understand and build a little bit of theoretical foundation blocks of gRpc, what gRpc is, and what it offers, and then we'll create one hello world of the default template thing, whichever is coming from gRpc in .NET Core, and we'll see that so that we'll understand a little bit more fundamentals about gRpc. And then the third piece is we'll create one gRpc service which will go and drop a record inside the data store. So that means we'll understand everything. Like first, let's build what is gRpc as a fundamental theoretical piece, and then do an hello world and do one real world service where we go and drop a record into the SQL server. Okay, that's the thing. Let me go grab the PPT so that I can start. Just a moment, 1 minute, please. Mm,
And guys, if you are joining us first time, I request you to please do subscribe to .NET X YouTube channel so that you will get the notification about such webinar automatically, and what are the videos we will upload over there. Those video notification you will also get over there. Prashant, thank you for joining us first time. What about others? Raj Kumar, thank you for joining us first time.
okay, so shall I flash my screen?
Yeah, you can share your screen, please.
Yeah, that's one. All right. Is my screen visible?
Yeah,
Okay,
we can see
looks
your
like
screen.
it's perfect. So this will be the place where you can go and grab all the source code. So just wanted to let you guys know so that you guys can focus on the talks. So it will be here inside this year 2000. There's a folder for .NET Tricks. It will be inside this folder. You can grab it after the session. Okay, I'll check in once we complete the session. So let's see what are we going to do in today. So this is hands-on developing gRpc service and client using .NET Core, EF Core, and SQL Server. So the session will be purely hands-on, and the sessions will have the parking lots. So any of the queries which we are not able to answer today due to time or due to some technical things, or which I have to do some reading or anything, will definitely revert it back. Some of the concepts we will introduce, and again it will be revisited in future sessions. And there are multiple ways to do each and everything, and I'm doing one of the way. That is because I might be knowing only that way to do it, or that's my personal choice of to do that way. Okay, the focus is more on concepts, and demos are kept simple, and I am still learner. That's true, I'm still learner. So The tools we use is we use Visual Studio 2019 Professional and Visual Studio Code, Azure Data Studio, and SQL Server. So, what is this Azure Data Studio is? It's one of the cross-platform tool where you can go ahead and communicate with the SQL Server. Either you can use the SQL Server Management Studio, or you can use Azure Data Studio, which is cross-platform. Sorry. Okay. Now
So,
let's
Mr.
start.
Swami, okay, you're fine.
Okay.
So before going to start the session, please tell them like what is the gRpc and why we are going to use with ASP.NET Core so that audience having the understanding.
Mm.
And guys here, how many people know already the ASP.NET Core? Can you confirm through the chat window if you know already the ASP.NET Core so that we can understand the audience? It will help us to Mr. Swami to explain the things in more better way. If you don't know about the ASP.NET Core, so Mr. Swami can tell you about in brief what is the ASP.NET Core and why you should go ahead with gRpc for building the things over there. Am I right, sir?
Yes, sir. That's true.
So do let us know how many people are working on ASP.NET Core, like how many people are learning the ASP.NET Core, because uh, to go ahead with the gRpc, you will have the more clarity about that one. Okay, Web have already know .NET Core. Abdul Rahim don't know. Okay, Ashok Kumar, the Visual Studio 2019 is mandatory if you are going go ahead with .NET 5, even with 3.1 element also, because Visual Studio 2017 you can use only with ASP.NET Core 2.x. 3.x is not there in 2017. So make sure everyone having the Visual Studio 2019 to work with the ASP.NET Core 3.1 and gRPC. Okay, Karthik, that's great if you're learning the ASP.NET Core. Okay, Swami, now you can go ahead, sir.
Oh, okay. Thanks so much. So, how do we? Yeah, let me. I think I have to talk about the history. Then I can come back on gRpc. Okay. So now, if you see this history of the remote procedure call or the web API or the SOAP or the communication, so this was there since 70s, around 70s onwards. It was there. So initially, it was called as a remote procedure call. Then we used to have the COM, DCOM, Java RMI, and then the around 2000, mid 2000 to late 2000, we used to have that SOAP XML web services. I used to work in .NET Framework 1.x, where I used to create this web services in ASMX files. And Java people, they have the same ASMX SOAP XML web services, and there are still companies, they use this SOAP XML in their production system. Then the REST has come into the picture, and people started using REST over the SOAP and XML, and the default data which is coming was JSON. And then some of the people, they started using gRpc. So that's the history. Now let's step back and understand this. What is gRpc? So gRpc is a framework for high performance, and we will see that why it is high performance and other things. Now, okay, so one of the thing is this gRpc. It is purely contract based. That means any two different parties or any multiple parties or any parties who wants to communicate with this gRpc, they have to strictly adhere to the contract, which is with this interface definition language. And also we have the streaming. We have the client side streaming, binary streaming, unary streaming, and bidirectional streaming. What does streaming mean? Streaming means a client sends a message and the server responds with a message. That's a unary streaming. And some of the places where client sends multiple messages and the server responds back with a single message, that's called client side streaming. And the server side streaming is client sends a single message to which server responds multiple responses. And bidirectional streaming is client sends multiple messages and the server sends multiple messages, and there's a lot of security built in. That's with this HTTP2. And how are we telling that it is high performance? So one of the thing what we can do is, if you go to this gRpc binary payload, if you see this, the payload itself, you can see this. One of the they did a lot of experiment where they went with millions of transactions to benchmark it, and they saw that a lot of loads, we can send multiple things, and also the size, the number of bytes which is traversing over the wire, the gRpc is very very less. So the gRpc, if you see this number of bytes, because that's in binary, if you have 200 bytes of regular text in json content, and if the same json content has been converted into binary and sent over the wire, that binary content will be very less, and it travels through the wire. So that's one of the reason what why we are telling that that is high performance. And another thing is it is available across ecosystems. That means you can work with this gRpc in different languages and different operating systems. So, and and that's one of the introduction. And where do we use this one? So motivation, or why do we use this? So as we discussed that the history, we discussed that a lot of client server or a distributed systems which was existing right from 70s onwards, or 70s or mid 70s or early 70s. And every time a new technology is coming, and each has got its own use case. That means no one is winning over other. Okay, so the communication is binary communication. If you see that soap over xml, the information which was going to and fro was on xml, and if you see the rest, the information was going to and fro as JSON default. And here the communication is between the client and the server is through the binary system. And the other thing is it's purely contract based. Like if I give you an endpoint of a web API endpoint, and I tell that this is an endpoint, and you can give me in a post call, you can give me the fields which I don't need, or you can do anything, you can give me the fields less or something. But when it comes to the contract, any client who wants to talk to a server has to strictly adhere to the client. That means he can't give me anything more than what I need. So it comes in that strict format. And it's available in different ecosystems, we saw that. And what does this mean is, you can use different operating systems and different languages. And we have this unidirectional as well as the bidirectional streaming too. And gRpc requires, by default it requires http2 protocol to transport this binary messages. And gRpc uses this protocol buffers as the interface definition language. We'll see this. So the simple thing is, where do I use it? Where do I use it is in any microservices where you need this low latency and high scalable distributed systems. And also between this microservice to microservice communication, that means we have one microservices hosted in one data center and another microservice hosted in another data center, and they want to talk to each other. So in that kind of scenarios also it best suits. And any like a client server desktop or web applications. And previously, if you see that when you create a gRpc web service, when you use this gRpc service, you cannot grp at the time gRpc will not support the browser. So now that they have started supporting the gRpc web also, after adding the gRpc web, you can have access the gRpc through web also, browser also, all the browser application, maybe the Angular, React, or any kind of JavaScript framework or Blazor. They are also supporting the communication with this new gRpc web. So it's best suited even if you're doing the web spa applications. Either you have the backend middle tier using the .NET Core or the Node.js or any kind of this thing, REST APIs. You can replace that with with gRpc, just to because to have this advantage of all these new facilities like http, running on http2 by default ssl and secure, and the content is getting traversed in binary. So, and also it is language independent. That means the protocol buffers, the port buff files, whatever you create is language independent. It's like just like a text file where you define what is this service and how many methods which you are going to expose, and what each method is going to accept, what each method is going to give us out. So all those things which we can define it, and integration with the third party systems. So this is a pretty big and good use case. That means like host number of options are there. Let's assume a company A, they are on Windows system, and they use Windows system, and they use C sharp language, and that company has either merged with the company B, or they are doing a project in collaboration with company B, and the company B purely they are from the Ubuntu or Linux flavors, and they use this they use they use this Go language. And another company, they use this Mac OS, and they are using Java language. Now three different companies, they're having their own different kinds of operating system, one they're having their own different language or tool set. Now they can seamlessly integrate with this, as we have seen that both any companies, whether they are exposing a client or they are creating a server, all they do is they adhere to the contract which is exposed by protofile. So and there are a lot of tools which generates the client and server side files, the stubs and messages and the stubs, which you can communicate, and rest everything is taken care. We'll see that in action. And it is one of the other use cases. It's used in low power IoT devices. And if you see that, who is winning the race? That's a very good point. I always love to talk about this. uh, REST, gRpc, GraphQL, and you can see this. So if you see that we have REST, GraphQL, webhooks, gRpc, different things, and someone will definitely get a question in their mind that okay, so if the gRpc is coming, does that mean that we have to stop using REST? No, each has got its own advantage or the use cases. So the screwdriver definitely will have its own advantages, and the jumper will have its own advantages. We can't replace one with other. It might be overkill, or it might be definitely an overkill, or we are using a wrong tool set to solve a particular problem. So that might get backfire. So if you see the REST, it best suits for those CRUD operations, and this REST hypermedia stuff where you want to give a particular data and then give the self links, or what actions you can do, or how can you communicate with that. All those REST kind of things best suits you want to use this REST web APIs. And if you see this gRpc, this best suits where you want to stick with a contract based, and you want to do purely http2 communication, and by default it is ssl, and the transmission is through the binary, and then you want the streaming facilities. So those are other use cases where it best suits. Like you want to use it for the, it's also best suited for this low powered IoT devices, or you can host it in one of the data center, another data center, and they both can communicate with each other. And it's like purely the contract based, right? And if you see that the GraphQL, when you're communicating with the a large set of data, this you have to use this GraphQL or any technology which best suits for that. Now the webhooks, it's when you want on based on something you want to communicate, you use this one. So Signal are that which sends the message to different clients. So each technology has got its own use case, and if we try to solve this with any of the other technology which is not the right choice, either either that might be overkill, or you might do more coding, or it might get backfired. You do something initially, it works, and after spending 3 to 4 months, then you are unearth that there is a big rock and you can't proceed further, and that makes all those 4 to 5 months of efforts go in vain. So it's better, each has got its own use case. Okay, multicasting, like if you see this, each has got its own use case. No one is winning over other. So in a scenario where you still, as I was mentioning, there are, I know there are still systems in production, they use the soap and xml web services even today. Okay, so that's like each has got its own use case, and we have to use it for that one. So when we know that we need that low resources and service to service communication and the streaming facilities, and you have the security, it goes on http2 by default, ssl enabled, and the binary communication where the amount of content which is traversing over wire will get compressed. I mean, in the sense, when you compare with the plain text versus the binary of the same length of content, the binary will be definitely less, so it moves more number of content with the same bandwidth. So there are four types of communication which comes in this gRpc. So you can have this unary communication. You That means, as I was mentioning, one message which is coming from the client and one message which is coming from the server. The client streaming is where you are bringing in, the client is sending in multiple messages, server is responding with a single message. And the server side streaming, where client sends a single message, server sends multiple messages. And the bi-directional streaming is like shelling in the border, both people sending in multiple messages. Okay, so introduction to protocol buffer. So protocol buffers is an interface language. Okay, that language is used to build the contract, and there are a lot of tools are available to generate the code, because this interface definition language, or this interfaces, it mentions that what is the service name and how many methods, remote procedure call methods it is exposing, what each remote procedure call method is going to accept, and what it is going to send out. That's like pure plain English kind of thing. And how does it impact if I'm creating a server using C sharp? How does it impact if I'm creating a server using C++? How do that impact in Go? How do that impact in Java or Node.js or Python or Ruby? Everything will differ, isn't it? So there are a lot of tools which is already there, available. So it takes care reading the protobuf. It creates the tools, create the classes and the messages for any language. So there are more number of languages. This is what I took it from the gRpc site over here a few months ago. So now every day more number of languages are coming in. And this interface definition language is a language neutral, platform neutral, serializable. Okay, we'll see that how to create one in few minutes from now. And if you see this dot proto file, the first line will be always this proto 3. There are proto 2, proto 3 version. We use proto 3 version, and each field should have a unique number. And that number, if you see that string username is 1 and string user id is 2, that means it does not mean that we are assigning that value to this particular field. It is like uniquely identifying that particular field. It's like employee id or a student id, which is unique, so with which you'll be able to identify. So similarly, this is a text or an object, the plain old class inside any language. Maybe it's a client or a server. Let's assume it's a client. We have one object, and that has called two fields like username and user id. When we send this object from client to the server, so that object will get converted into binary. So from this object, what is the field, how much content I have to take it, and where should I assign it inside the binary to transfer? When we are transferring from binary to object, what field, how much content I need to assign, what is the order? For that, it needs this uh, ordinal position numbering, like 1 2 3. Okay, and it is to identify the fields in the binary message format and should not change. Once you assign it, you should not change. You can bump that number, and we can have multiple messages inside a single proto file. We'll see that how to create that. And if you see that scalar value types, the left side one is, this side one is the proto type, Google port buff type, and this side is its equivalent in C sharp. In gRpc site, official site, you can see that there is a big list and a lot of supporting language. Everything is being given in the site. So if you see that double float are same, and int32 comes as int in C sharp, and int64 is long, and bool and string. And the default value for string, bools, and numerics are: string means it's an empty string, bool is always false, and all the numeric values will be defaulted to 0 if you don't assign any value. So now let's get some terminology. So service. So service is like, let me take example, and then we can correlate with that. 1 second. Okay, we'll be doing all these things shortly. Okay, now let me keep this so that can switch. So what is this service? So it's an interface or contract which is defined. So this one, that's a service where you define the contract. Okay, this is a service name, and it is going to expose. So method, what is method? Means all the operations which we create inside this service, that's called the method. And what is message? Message is, this method is accepting hello request as an input, and it returns hello message. So message is something, assume like it's like an input and output of a RPC method. So stream is a sequence of zero or more messages. And service implementation, so implementation of all methods and operation defined in the service. If you see this service greeter, and that greeter service has been implemented here in this C sharp file. So that's called the service implementation. And what is a server? A program that exposes one or more gRpc service. So if you see that here in this C sharp program, if I come to this startup and go to the bottom of this, we are exposing one of the gRpc service. So this program is known as a server, a program that exposes one or more gRpc services. Okay, this program here, first gRpc demo, sorry, gRpc greeter, this is the server which is hosting this gRpc service. That's the server. Now what is a client? A program that establishes the connection to the server and sends. So here, if you see this gRpc greeter client, gRpc greeter client, this is the one which is establishing a connection to the server, and it is communicating with the server. So this program, we call it as a client. And what is a connection? A connection is a virtual pipe that connects this client to the server, and that too on HTTP2 by default, enhanced security. Okay, stub is an object used by the gRpc client. That means we pass this to the stub, and which takes care of rest of the things. So I've given this correlated with the theoretical stuff with the practical. Now let's see that how do we create one now. Okay, let's start. Let me go and create one folder, .NET Trick, and inside that, let me go and create gRpc session 1. Perfect. So we have this. Let me close this for a moment. First thing is, let's check this .NET version. .NET list SDKs. So I have 2.x, 3.x, and 5.x. I have all these three versions, and .NET version. So by default, it is considering 5.0.101. That's the default, but I want to create it in 3.1. Okay, which I will override, and uh, .NET new. And if you type this .NET new, so it will give you bunch of options. What all the things you can create? You can create a lot of by default templates, whatever it's supporting, like a console application, class library, WPF, Windows, worker service, unit, tracer pages. A bunch of things are there. So what I do at this point of time is, if I try to create, as I was mentioning here, if you check the version, by default it is taking 5.1 as a default version. So I want to override and create it in 3.1. So let me create this global JSON. So .NET new. I create this global JSON, and I can get into that folder over here, and I can check this. So it is taking. I will override that with the version which I want to create. I want to create with I want to use this 3.1. I'll override that over here. And now if I come back to the same folder, I do .NET version. Now it is considering 3.4. Even though .NET, if I do list SDKs, the 5.1 is there, but I'm overriding, I'm telling that please use this 3.1 instead 5.1. Cool. We did that, and I don't need this. I don't need this. So what I do is come back to this presentation. Okay. So first thing what we will do is we'll create the we'll create. Let me take this and this, put it in a notepad so that it removes all those things. Okay. So let me first create a folder over here. I'm calling I'm calling this as first gRpc demo. I've created this first gRpc demo over here, and that's a folder. And next thing is I will cd into that folder. Cd, I went into that folder, first gRpc demo. And now what I'm doing is I want to create a first template or a first project using this gRpc. So I just paste this. I'll say .NET new gRpc output. I want to create it as a gRpc greeter. I just click enter. So it is creating this. Okay, I will open a new code. Okay, perfect. So that is succeed. So let me go grab this guy over here and get into this folder, and I'll open that folder now. I mean, first let's work on the hello world program here so that we'll know the in and out of the gRPC. Then we'll go and use Visual Studio 2019. So let's come back here and let's see the folder structure. By default, whatever the template which it is creating, it will create this program.cs. So this is the main program which creates the iHost builder, and that it runs this. And the next thing is it runs the startup.cs. Inside the startup.cs, where we have the configure services method, which is creating this service dependency injection container, and configure method is there. This is the one which is used to execute the request response pipeline, okay, HTTP pipeline. And use routing is the one which says that that has to go and match the routing. That means when you give the endpoint routing, it goes and verifies that with this routing what is the method which I have to execute. Okay, and use endpoint is the one which is an middleware, which is an execution middleware based on the routing. It knows that which the use routing is the one which goes and selects the method which has to be executed, and the use endpoint is the one which is the execution middleware which goes and executes that particular endpoint. Okay, and the app settings is the one which is where you store all these configurations. And the next point is this proto file, where you see this as we discussed the Google's port buff. The port buff file has got an extension of .poto, and the current version is 3. We are using the 3, and the namespace is greeter. That's what when for C sharp, and that will definitely differ. We'll see that in a moment. And service is this greeter, and it is exposing one RPC method, say hello. This say hello will accept hello request, and it returns hello reply. So service, we have seen the terminologies also, and it has got one service which is by default provided by the template, and it has implemented also. It has implemented this say hello method. Now let's dig deeper into this one. And there's one file known as properties file, where it says that what is the application URL. Okay, these all things are good. Now let's try to understand little bit more. What is this greeter service? We understood that this is an implementation of the proto file which is there. And what is this greeter base? Who created it? That's a good question. So let's go get into this OBJ, get into the debug, and you see this two files. One is the greet gRpc and greet. So let me minimize this and open the proto. The file name is proto. Sorry, the file name is greet.proto, and the file two files which got created here is uh, greeter grpc and greet. So you see the name greet, so it will suffix with grpc and greet.cs. So if here, if you see that we have a service and we have set of messages. So this service, whatever the service is here, it will create .grpc, and it will give the give this class. It will create the base abstract class over here. That's what is that. Let's see this. Let's get into this greeter.cs. The namespace is grpc greeter, that is coming from here. And the next thing is we can get into this. It is creating the partial class greeter. Who has given the name? We have given the name as greeter. And if you scroll little bit over here, you can see that there is a uh, abstract partial class. It's called greeter base. Okay, so now if you go and check this service and see that greeter base is the one which was created by the tool, the greeter base. That's a partial class, and that partial class is exposing a method called say hello. That is the virtual method, and you can see that we are overriding that virtual method here. So whatever the things which you specify inside this proto, the tools will create its respective server components as well as the client components. So in C sharp, this is applicable in C sharp. Whatever the file name, it suffix the gRpc, and it creates this abstract class. It will be named as a whatever the name you specify here. It will add base to that, and it will call it as a that file name dot base. Okay, the class name, whatever the service name you have given, service name base, and whatever the RPC methods which you specify inside this, that will be converted. That will be marked as a virtual here inside this class, and that you will be overriding. And the moment you come to this file grid.cs, and you see this lot of reflection stuffs are there. So the moment you see reflection, you should understand that some kind of transformation is happening from class to some type to some other type. So if you scroll a little bit, you see this hello request that you can see here, hello request. And if you scroll a little bit down, you can see that the field number is 1. So that means here the field number is, and the response also, it will be mentioned as another class, hello reply. There also you will have this field. So now we understood. So there is something known as a dot proto file, and inside that proto file we will create a service, and it will expose set of RPC methods, and also we'll create set of messages. That means where this message is getting used. So what is going as an input and what is going as an output, everything we mention it here. And the tools will take care of creating the respective classes in that particular language. Maybe it's on C, C++, Java, Python, Ruby, Node.js, anything. There are tools. It will create this gRpc and this messages. I mean the service and messages. Everything will get created. And first thing is, I'll close this. Okay. After closing this, if I come in here, let me create another proto file here. Calculations proto, and I'm copying this here. And let me go into this, and I do cd and change directory into that one. I see all the files. I say .NET build. Let me build, and let's again go back to this obj folder and debug. So we are not seeing that calculations anywhere near. So that means we are missing something. And how does this tools know that it has to create the corresponding files for this greeter, and how it is ignoring this calculations proto? So the answer is here inside this cs proj. Inside the cs proj, you see that an instruction has been specifically given to this. We are saying that take this greet.proto and create the server components. Now I come in here. Let's initially create the server components. Okay. So now I'll come and again I do the build, and now this time when we go and see that, we are seeing that. So similarly the greet in this one, you can get into this file, you can see this, that's a namespace, and this is the name I've given for the service, and the service name dot base, we can verify that. So service name is calculation service, so calculation service base. And what method I'm exposing? Add numbers. So that will be the abstract class. That's an abstract class here, calculations base. And I have one method add numbers that's being marked as a virtual. Now if I want to create client components, I have to explicitly come and mention that. So now we understood that. So what did we learn till now? We learned what is gRpc, and we can create the microservices either with the REST web API or with the gRpc. And each has got its own advantages of the use cases, and where you need total, you want to run on HTTP, as on HTTP2, we have to definitely go by gRpc. And in other places where you have only CRUD operations with the hypermedia stuff, we go with the REST API. And one more thing is the content whichever is coming from, if the same content is coming from the data store one route is REST and one route is gRpc, we see that the gRpc route will be a little bit faster, because even though the same number of bytes are coming in, because the gRpc it is converting into binary, and the binary has to traverse in the on the wire, so it will be a little bit faster. And also contract based and additional facilities whatever we get it through the http2 or http, the channel it is opening and reusing the channel, a lot of other details. If you get deep into the details, you will understand that. So at least at the first cut you understand this one. And also you know that there is something known as a proto, and inside the proto we will define a service and expose rpc method, and you will define something known as messages. And based on the instructions what you give inside this cs proj, whether to create a server component or whether to create a client components, the tooling will know, and it goes and creates it goes and creates this all this tools. Okay, I think that should be pretty much enough. We spending our time over here because I just wanted we to get into the little bit deep into this to find out what are we doing. So I think we can go and start playing in Visual Studio 2019. So now we are switching to, okay, just hold on, let's give it time. So if you see that it's the same, but visual look and feel is little different, but rest of the rules of the game is same. And here also, if you want to know, come here and click on this show all files, and you can get into this folder, and you can see this. And one more added advantage here using this Visual Studio is, if you select this and go to this properties of this file, right mouse click and go to the properties. So here you have the drop down box. So whether you want to create only server or only client, or don't generate or client server, just for the sake of demo, let's see that if I develop the client server and quickly build it. So let me go and open up all files and get into this. You can .NET 3, you can see this. You have this calculations gRpc, and you have this calculations, and the calculations, whenever we thought that without any suffix, that means it's purely the messages. You will have the messages whether here in the calculations or whether in the greeter. You can see that the messages are there. And if you go to this calculations, you see this calculation services here. And if you scroll a little bit here, you can see this calculation service base, and that's a server side component, and it is the client side component. So based on our instructions, whatever we give that to the tooling, I'm sorry, I'm having some throat problem, sorry for my voice. This is not my voice actually. uh, so one more important point what we have to see is, just now we have seen these pieces. Let me come in here and let's go to this NuGet package. So you can see this. How many packages has been installed? So to create the gRpc service, just go and see that only one package has been installed. And what is that package? It is gRpc ASP.NET Core, and it says that gRpc ASP.NET is gRpc is a meta package. Okay, what does this meta package? If you go and see this gRpc core has got a dependency on gRpc ASP.NET Core server client client factory, Google port buff, and gRpc tools. That means technically, whenever you're using this gRpc core, that means it is bringing in all these guys along with it. It's like someone given you a marriage card and is saying that come with friends and family. Okay, so this guy is like that. He's coming with his family and friends to the function. So you can see this. So gRpc ASP.NET Core, that's the one, and you can see this, that itself is coming with these three dependencies. And again, if you go and click any one of this, and you can see that that has got dependency on these things. So what is a meta package? Meta package is a package which comes with set of other packages on which it depends. So that's a meta package. And that being said, we understood all the things. We understood what is the package which is getting installed and what is a meta package. And the meta package comes with set of dependencies and its dependencies and any third parties which its dependencies depend on. Not on all third parties, but anything which is within this hierarchy, it goes and brings in. And we saw that what is protofile and how these protofiles are getting, what this protofiles contain, how does service, what does service means, what does rpc method means, what does messages means, and what is server, what is client, what is pipeline, and what is stub. We saw all the terminologies and we correlated that with the coding also. And we saw where do we mention what has to be done and how these things are getting converted. And also we have seen in the meta package that it is bringing in the tools also. So we didn't explicitly tell that, hey, get these tools and deploy it, but the meta package itself is bringing all, like a family and friends, it's bringing in all those things in here. So that being said, what we can do is we can close it and I'll just execute it, and let's see. It is executing this and it's mentioning that I can go and hit this. So this is not the right thing to do. I'm just doing it for the sake, but please don't do that. So at least if I go to the endpoint, it is giving me this message. So I can come back and check this inside the startup. That means it is technically it is coming and hitting this here. When I hit this endpoint, it is coming in here. This is not the right route or right validation, but I'm doing it for the sake. Okay. So now when I execute this, I am seeing some, I'm not seeing that what is the method or what kind of gRPC service it is exposing. So what I can do is just to spit some other information, I can come in here and get into this development settings and I do a debug. And now I go and execute this. Now you can see this, it is spitting more information. It's saying that there is a method called say hello and that is coming from the greeter. So this is giving me more information. Okay, this is from the server side. Now let's go ahead and create the client side now. Oops, looks like I closed my uh, tool. Okay, one second. Close folder. And okay, so we are here and this is the one. So let's create this client. So I'll come here and go ahead and create the gRPC client. Now we have created only the server side. Now we go ahead and create the client. There are multiple ways to create the client. We are creating the simple console app. Okay, C# .NET Core console app, and all the clients should be .NET Core, folks. Uh, so I just created a .NET Core client, the console application, and this console application is pretty simple console application. It doesn't have anything in it, and it says hello world, nothing else in this. So now, as we discussed, whether any parties who wants to communicate with this gRPC, they have to adhere to the interface, and interface is defined. The contract. The contract is defined using the interface definition language, the protofile.proto that exists here. There are multiple thoughts, or this can be shared. It can be shared in a shared location and everyone can take it, or you can do a literal copy. I can make a copy of this, and if at all there is a change again I need to do. But if it is within the solution, we have one advantage. We can right mouse click on this and click on add connected services. And once this dialog shows up, just click on this add and select this gRpc and click on next and go browse the file. Go to the greeter, go to the photo and bring this guy. And because this is a console application, the tool is pretty intelligent. It's saying that I have to create client. So again, you can create the same options you have. And I want to create a client. I go ahead and click on finish and observe what happens after this. The moment we click on this, so it identified, okay, want to create the gRpc. So it intelligently went and it's deploying these three packages: client factory, protobuf, cool, and the tools, these three. And let's see here. So it is having the Google protobuf and the .NET Client Factory and gRpc tools. And if you come back to the NuGet package where we were looking at, and you can see that here the dependencies. If you see that again, we have the three dependencies: Google Portbuff, that's here, and Google Tools, that's here. Because it's a server, it is creating server.client factory. Because it's a client, it's client factory. That's the only difference, that particular package. So rest of the things, but here the advantage is tool itself is taking care of that. Chalo, that's nice. We have created, oh god, okay, we just created it. So now let's go to the next step of the journey. Okay, so that's this class. I need to create it. So let me, okay, so let me grab this and put it inside this. There'll be a lot of red squigglies. Please don't worry. We'll fix everything in a moment. Okay, chalo. So that being said, so the first one is coming from here, and the greeter should come from the gRpc greeter. Cool. Everything is good now. So now you see that we have creating this channel, and what we will do is we will have one debugger point here, just to understand that request is coming from client to server. So I just click on this, the server gets executed over here. And let me come in here. Here we are making this invocation. I do right mouse click on this and debug, start a new instance. Ooh, this, one second, just a moment guys. Okay, cool. Right, so this one is the one I have to modify that task. The task is the one which is missing on here. That's it. The threading package. Let me bring in the namespace. Perfect. So let me build that. Right. So let me start the server. Okay, server is running, and right mouse click and debug and start a new instance. And that's it. You see this right now we are in the client, and I do an F10, and now it goes to the server. You can see this, we are in the server, and we got the request, and request is coming as a greeter client, and then I do an F5. So it has coming in here, the message, we got the response, and we can see here. So it has received the response, and it says that it has finished, the request has been finished in so and so milliseconds, because we are having the debugger, and we received the response back here. So couple of other things to focus is, most probably I do miss that. So imagine a scenario where you are exposing one more proto and you're creating one more gRpc service, and after doing that, most probably I sometimes forget, mostly I forget to add this inside this configure method. So now let's see what happens if someone forgets this. And you can see that one difference, that it's not spitting that information. And the next thing is, when I go and execute this, you click on it, and then it throws an error message, and it says that unimplemented. So mostly, some of the times we miss it. So if you get this kind of unimplemented, it could be one of the reason is this, you did not expose that. So ensure that you go and verify under the configure, under the endpoints you are exposing, and this is another check where you can check that you have hooked it up in the startup.cs and it is exposing, and you are able to communicate from client to server. Okay, so I do this and it comes to the server, and I do an F5, and again I'm coming back here. So we got this. Okay, so that's pretty much for this. Let me close all the tabs, and let me create that. So do we have some more time? Okay, so let's go and do one more sample, which is not something like hello world, whatever we did it here. And let's do some communication. So what are we doing in here is that I'll use the same solution instead of going ahead and creating new solution. I will use just to save our time. Okay, just wanted to showcase one more thing, how it differs when you are creating the gRpc in any other language apart from the C sharp. So I just created in Node.js, and here is a protos, and that's this calculations proto. And here you can see this calculations underscore grpc underscore pb, which you can correlate. It's like the file name grpc, that's the one which has got messages, which created the base class. So here also you can get into this node.js code, and you can see that, and it's exposing this service. And here it is exposing all those requests, add request and response. And the node.js server looks like this, where you can go and call this main method, and the client looks like this. Okay, so that's one of the thing. I just kept it just for a comparison sake, if anyone wants to see that how does. But every language, the Python does different, and Go does do differently. I did one specific experiment. I did it on that particular piece. If you are interested, you can go check that. Is Hello World of the gRpc. How you can do it in C sharp, in Golang, in Node.js, in Python. So how does the files differ? So just as a reference, you can see this. But our focus is C sharp. Let's stick to this C sharp. So let me showcase what is being done here. Let me go real quick and to this just to save some time. I'm copying these files to the folder just to save us some time. So no, instead of again we spending 30 to 40 minutes, I just wanted to save little time because we have seen the fundamentals, a good fundamentals. So I just wanted to make our life a little bit faster. So I'm opening the solution and you can see this. So here, let's go through this. It's the same default template. I just added the college API proto, and this college API proto has got one RPC method, which is this add professor. And this add professor is accepting new professor request and new professor response. And we are using something known as a timestamp, Google port buff timestamp. We need to spend 1 minute time on this. So let's quickly go. So if you get into this code, you can really see this. No, not this. Okay, here. Timestamp. If you see this, the timestamp of Google port buff timestamp is a little bit different from the C sharp's date time. So if you see, the timestamp is made up of two components. One is seconds and nanoseconds. That's one difference we have to note it because that will come in future session when we are doing it. I'll show you how we do the traverse. And rest everything is same. And the tooling also will take care. And one thing what we are doing here is there is a constants where we are saying that the connection string. I just created one constant, and inside this app settings I have given the connection string of my local database, and inside the database one second. So we have two entities, professor and student, and those two entities are professor and students from this database. And there is a folder called persistence. Inside that, a simple ef core db context, and the db set is exposing two dbs. We are exposing two db sets, and this one professor entity and this one is student entity. Whatever is on the right side, professors and students, they are one-to-one mapping with the tables. So professors, students, they are one-to-one mapping. And if you see this data access layer, the data access layer has got a dependency on the college DB context, and it is going and saving it. Okay, just kept it the demo pretty simple. Okay, and there's known as business logic layer, which is has got a dependency on a data access layer. And now let's see the service, and we are exposing the service, and we have created that add method. And one thing what we are doing is whatever the request which we are getting, that is of a Google port buff type. So from that type, we have to convert it into the entity. So actually, technically, we should use the auto mapper. I just kept it simple. I just doing a transfer from one object to another object, even though they are different type. And we need to take care of two things. As we saw, this request.datetime is the timestamp of Google port buff. So we need to convert that into to date time. So you see that when you do the timestamp dot to date time, it will convert from the Google's timestamp to date time. And one more thing is convert to decimal. The salary here is double. From that, we need to convert it to decimal. That's the only thing we need to take care over here. And again, we have seen the client, same thing whatever we did it, except in the previous demo we called as a hello request and hello reply, but here what we are doing is we are invoking this method. Okay, let's run this and see what it is creating. So let me see that what is the object which I'm sending in the name. Okay, name I'm sending in Shiva and today's date time. So let me execute this server. I hope there is a debugger on the server. Yeah, I have created a debugger on the server also. Um, okay, so that's here. The server is executing. So you can see this say hello method which is coming from this greet, and add professors which is coming from the college API. So that that's one of the important point which you need to focus, that you are hooking up in the uh, startup. So you have to focus on this dependency injection. We are adding the DB context as well as the Professor Bal and Professor Dal. These three are application dependencies. We are adding it to the service container. And another important point what we have to observe is we are creating the greeter gRpc service. We are hooking up, and also the college gRpc service. Okay, now let's come back to the client, and let's execute this client. So you can see this, the request has come in here in the client, and you can see that it is creating this, and then we are calling it. So now it has received on the server. You can see this is in the server. So that request is coming here, and what we are doing is we are converting the from the Google Portbuf type to the entity type. So you can see this, the datetime object is this like this. And one thing what we can do is we can see that. Let's go right mouse click on that and do a quick watch, and you can see this, the datetime object, I mean the timestamp, the Google Podbuff timestamp is made up of two components. One is nanos, one is seconds. So based on these nanos and seconds, it will do create the date time. So if you change this nanos, if you create a date time stamp object in C sharp and assign a random nanos and day seconds, you will see what is the date. Or you can randomly create a date and then go and check this two objects, two properties, nanos and seconds, then you will know that. So that's one difference you need to see. Now what is happening is we are creating a record. So now if you go and see, we are adding a new record, and then if I see here, it is creating a new record, and it is 81814710. So we can come back to the database and check this one, 814710. A new record has been created. So that's the thing. So that's it. So we have learned couple of things, at least the basics of we learned about the basics of fundamentals or the theoretical stuff on what is gRpc, and we have fixed our terminology, like what is a service, what is a message, and server, client, and all those things. We got the terminology, and we saw that what is gRpc and where does it best fits, and other things like gRpc, REST API, and GraphQL, or SignalR, or webhooks. So each of these technology solves a particular problem, and how they go and solve it. And we have to see the proper use case when we have to use what. If we go and start using it left, right, and center, it might be either overkill or we might end up landing in a problem. Okay. And another thing what we saw is how to create this. We have created a solution, and that default template comes with a proto, and we saw that what a proto file is, and how does it has got service, and how does it uh, define a RPC method, and what all messages are, and why do we need the numbering. And the next thing what did we do is we went and saw the service implementation, and we found service name dot base is an RPC method. Hello. Okay. So that is which is implementing, and and then we went into the obj debug .NET Core folder, and we started seeing that what all the files it is creating. So it is creating the file name grpc.cs and file name.cs. So what all those, we dig deeper into that, and we saw that how is this base, the file name dot base is getting created, that's a virtual class, and the sorry, abstract class, and the RPC method is a virtual method, and who is creating is the tool, and where does the instruction comes from, that will be inside the CS proj. And we saw that what is the meta package, the grpc ASP.NET Core grpc is a meta package. That means the package comes with itself and all the dependencies it needs. So we saw that server, factory, Google port buff, and tools. And tools is a guy which does. And then we started creating the client, and we took the reference. When we took it reference from the Visual Studio 2019, so it was able to get the client dependencies also. Okay. So we saw the communication, and one of the other tip what we saw is most of the times we forget to hook it up in the configure method. So when you do try to communicate, we do everything and just to quickly test it, and we forget to hook it up in the startup class, and suddenly go and try to access it, and it says that not implemented. Then you need to understand this. And we saw another thing is to switch on the debug inside that apps dev settings, and that's when we started seeing all those things. Okay. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and let's see and next session next month. Thank you so much, and thanks for joining, and you guys have a good weekend.